Hello everybody, Helen the Russian here. I've had a very interesting conversation with a gentleman yesterday, and he came for a session for my life coaching session, and what prompted him to see me more than anything was the death of the former President Bush. This particular gentleman I was speaking to, he is 80 years old, and it is normal when someone, especially someone prominent, dies, but also someone whom you know, it brings up the thoughts of your own mortality. And like I said, this guy is 80 years old. I mean, he's fine as far as everyone and himself are concerned, but you never know. He goes, look, I may not be here tomorrow. It may just happen randomly and suddenly. And what he's done once he learned about President Bush's death, he sat down and written letters to his children. He has 4 children, grown children obviously, but he's written letters to them, and one of the sentiments that he expressed was the fact that really they should tell him and he should tell them how they feel about each other in terms of how much they love and appreciate each other while they're still alive. He goes, it's all nice and well to have a nice funeral and the eulogies are lovely, but it's a bit too late. It's much better to let people know how much you love, appreciate and care about them while they're still alive. And a lot of times we realize that, all of us, but it is too late. And the point of this video, the reason I felt that maybe I should make a video about this, is oftentimes we think we got time. We got all the time in the world and we waiting for a perfect moment, or we just putting it off thinking, you know what, I'll do it then and there. And then time runs out on us, just like that, in an instant. In my personal life experience, I've had that happen multiple times, so I speak from experience, and I can give you some examples. For instance, my grandmother, my father's mom, died suddenly at the age of 64, which by no means is old, and she was in a good health. She was quite literally cooking a meal in the kitchen, and she was by herself in the apartment. And then the reason people even knew something is wrong, when she died from a heart attack. They found her on her bed with the pill of nitroglycerin in her hand. So she felt unwell. She went and sat down because the pills were on the nightstand by her bed. So she took the pill, but she died before she could even bring her to her mouth. And the dinner was burning, and so the neighbors got word, and thankfully the door was unlocked, because back then, we hardly ever locked the doors when we were at home. And so they found her dead. And it was very unexpected. I was only 10, and then she was my good grandmother. She was amazing, truly amazing person. I probably should do the whole separate video about, she is my role model. She's a shining example of what a human being should be. Truly, it's not because she's my grandma I'm saying that. She had a really hard life, extremely hard life, and yet she kept up optimistic and upbeat attitude. She always wanted to help, and she did. She constantly helped people. She constantly tried to make herself better, to educate herself, to move up in the world in terms of workplace, but with the sole purpose so she can help her children, her friends, other people, her grandchildren. And anyhow, in Russia we have a saying, "Хорошие люди Богу нужны," which means God wants good people too, so he takes them pretty early. But that was that, and it was, I remember it was summertime, and during summer my dad, who was a chief coach of a Soviet national team in yachting, because it was my school holiday, he took me with him because he went to different cities for competition and practices and whatnot, so he usually took me with him. So we were away when that happened, and so we were flying back, and obviously my mother knew we'd due back. And that was, I think, the next day or 2 days after grandma died. So instead of calling him, My mom was, I have to say, my mom is a piece of work, and I don't mean it in a nice way. That, yeah, that it is what it is, and that's very objective opinion. But she went and met us at the airport, and I still remember like vividly in front of it. Like I'm 50 now, so that was 40 years ago, and I remember she, mom had no finesse. She still doesn't have any finesse. So she literally just came up to me and my dad and told dad straight up, without any prelude, hey, your mom died. And my dad was the strongest person I knew, and he clearly, it was a shock, and but my dad always kept his shit together. Yeah, that's one thing I took after him that way. But generally speaking, Russians, we usually, we endure. We don't lose control. We just stick with it. But anyhow, dad smoked, and so he lit up a cigarette and he walked away just for a few minutes. And my mom, the way that that was her husband, really. They've been married by then for decades. And instead of going and comforting him and, finding the words, whatever they were, she sent me. Because my dad and I were very close. But remember, I was 10 years old. So she told me, she goes, go be with your dad. So I did. And obviously he couldn't talk to me like he would have talked to an adult. But I comforted him, and dad always found comfort in me. He always told me, he said, what did he call me? How did he put it? He always said, lightning rod. He said, you're my lightning rod. So whenever he had a bad day or a really hard event happening, he would just hold me, and he says, when I hold you, you make it go away. Just all that bad stuff just drains away from me. So, I just held him, and, we went through the funeral later and whatnot. But anyhow, that was that. And although I loved my grandma, and I did spend a lot of time with her, not enough, I wish I spent more, it wasn't up to me. But, I felt, even then, I was a kid, and, I was okay, but to this day, I wish I had more time with her as I was growing older, because like I said, she's an amazing role model. But also, I wished I expressed more love. I told her more how much I loved her, although that was my favorite grandma. I did tell her often that I loved her. So that was that. And then my dad, that's another, he died very suddenly from a heart attack at the age of 74, and I wasn't there because him and mom lived in Moscow, and I'm in the States. And when dad died, I lived in New Zealand. Dad, not to say he was in amazing health, because overall, I can tell you, my dad died basically serving. His early death was brought up by lifetime of serving his country. That being a chief coach of a Soviet national team is not an easy task. People cannot imagine. Only Russians from that era know what kind of pressure and expectations were put on them. I mean, the stress was unbelievable. So my dad had 5 heart attacks, stomach ulcer that went all the way through. So his stomach actually had a hole. He had liver problems. The fact that he smoked all his life from the age of 12 obviously didn't help. But, he had 2 strokes as well. And a few other things, high blood pressure. But overall, he was okay. Around the time of his death, he was okay. He should have exercised more. He kind of tend to lay around, watch TV a lot. But ultimately, no one, including himself, expected him to die right then and there. And it was a heart attack. It came over him in the middle of the night. My mom was sleeping in the next room, but she woke up, and he died not instantly, and he took an hour dying. And EMS was there. Mom called 911, but there was nothing they could do. That his arteries were literally hardening up. They couldn't even give him an injection. So he died at home. It wasn't necessarily a peaceful death, but at least it was reasonably quick. And again, I wasn't there. Sometimes it makes me sad that I couldn't hold him for the last time, kiss him, tell him how much I love him. Although, again, my dad, I told him a lot how much I loved him. We were very close. I was never close with my mom, but I was very close with my dad. But, like I said, again, I'm not telling all this to be morbid. I'm just giving specific examples of why, like how we think, like he was 74. I thought, well, he died on Valentine's Day, as a matter of fact, the night before Valentine's. and I usually don't go to Moscow in wintertime just because it's really cold. I go in summertime, so I totally thought, I'll go there in the middle of May and we'll spend some time. And it was all, I thought I had all the time, and I thought there gonna be many, many years of that. And boom, he was gone. Very close friend of mine. In fact, there were three of us girlfriends. She got cancer and she fought it for nearly almost 2 years. So, but it was getting the better of her. So in her case, yes, we did know that she was gonna pass. But what happened with her, she called me one afternoon and she said, hey, and she was already really unwell. Like I said, we knew she was gonna go, but we kind of thought she has at least few weeks left, at least probably months. So she called me and she said, hey, we chatted for a bit, and she goes, can you come over and do my nails? I used to be manicure. She says, can you do a manicure and pedicure? I said, yeah, of course I will. And so we agreed that I'm gonna go over her house the next day in the afternoon. In fact, I said 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock or whatnot. I said, yeah, I'll be there. She quite liked the French manicure. I said, yeah, I'll do it for you, no problem. And so once again, I thought I definitely have at least that next day to go and spend time with her. And so I'm at home and I get a phone call, and that was before the smartphones. It was 2004 when she died. So we had flip phones, but the phone call came on my landline, and I had a caller ID, so I can see it's her number. So I assumed it was before I was meant to be going to her. So I assumed she's just calling me to either confirm or, ask me to bring something. So I pick up the phone because I knew it was her number. So without even listening to who it is, I call her, I go, hey, Larissa, what's up? And it's her neighbor, and she goes, Larissa died. She's dead. You need to come over straight away. And so just like that, she was gone, and I didn't get that last chance. I did do her nails. I have to say, Palm Mortuaries were very gracious. I went and talked to the funeral director and I explained the situation. So he said, okay, we can't let you into the embalming room for the insurance reason. But he said, once we'll embalm her, we're gonna there is a room where they can bring, the coffin with her out. And they said, you can take your time and do her nails. So I did do her nails one last time. I gave her the French manicure that she wanted. But you see what I mean? That's exactly it. And more to a point, this is friends and family, but I've had that happen several other times. I used to have a good friend here in Las Vegas, and he was upper management of several casinos. Ultimately, he ended up being CEO of one of the major casinos for a major corporation here while I was away. He was that before in a different casinos, but then I was away, and I'm not going to get into it, but clearly something happened. He resigned, but I know he resigned because he was forced to. He was, again, very genuinely, fundamentally decent and good person. And these days, this is so hard to come by. You know what I'm talking about. Someone who is genuinely, fundamentally decent and good, especially in that high up of the management. Because to get up there, and he, not to say he didn't play the corporate game, obviously you don't get to be that high without it, but he always found, like, he had a moral compass. He did, and which is why I'm saying, he resigned, but yeah, it had to do with corporation I genuinely dislike. One of the, we don't have that many, so some of you might guess which one that is. But anyhow, he, when I got back from New Zealand, and I knew what had happened, but he went in totally different state, and he was hired in there in even better position. He managed, it was a complex of 6 different hotels and casinos. So he was only 64. And so I thought to myself, oh yeah, because, first year I moved here from New Zealand, I was reestablishing my business. I've been gone for almost 10 years. So it's a bit hard to start everything new, to reestablish your network. And so I was busy. And I thought, well, not this year, but next year, I'll go. I thought I'm going to do it this fall, as a matter of fact. I thought, that's one of the places where the leaves change. You can see the leaves changing and whatnot. And I thought, okay, I'll go, I'll see the leaves change, I'll catch up with my friend and whatnot. And then it was a bit of a shock when I read the press release in June. he died. He quite literally dropped dead from a heart attack in the suite in one of the hotels that he managed, and it made me very sad, like genuinely, because he was, when I say good person, yes, but also he helped so many people. He really helped, and there were tributes from people who, I'm glad they acknowledge that there is a prominent performer here in Las Vegas whom he helped quite a lot, and that performer wrote a really nice tribute for him on Twitter. But it made me very sad that he was alone. He was alone in his suite, and I knew his wife when we were here in Vegas friends. I knew his family, I knew his wife, I knew his daughters really well. I've been to his house many times. And to be honest, because I've been gone and we weren't in touch, I wasn't sure why he was in that suite alone. I thought maybe they got divorced. But then when I read the obituary, it said that he survived by his wife. And the name was, the name of the woman that I know. So, who knows, maybe he had an important meeting late that night or early that morning and he decided he wasn't gonna go home. But what I'm trying to say, and I hope, I genuinely truly hope, of course I will never know because they found him in the morning, so no one actually knows, but I hope that death was instant and painless and he didn't even know what happened. He just was gone. I hope he was not dying like my dad was for an hour, because like I can tell you, mom said dad was really scared. It was not a good, and yeah, now it doesn't sound like a long time, but when you're dying, it could feel like eternity. And I hope my friend wasn't there by himself on the floor dying for an hour without anyone there to hold his hand or even be with him. So that's just a few examples. Unfortunately, I have several more. I'm not trying to be morbid. That's not what this video is about. But what I'm trying to get across, tell people you love how much you love them. Care about them. Don't wait for special occasion. I know the reason I'm making all this video is because Christmas is coming and everybody, does the whole family thing, the party thing, the gifts and whatnot. And it's nice. I'm not against that. But do this as often as you can. Do this every day. Do this, don't wait for this special moment or I'll save up this money and I'll take him or her out for this amazing dinner on this amazing holiday, or I buy her this amazing jewelry. Don't do this. That's not what's important. I'm a big believer that things, really meaningful things that really stir your soul, are said in quiet, when two people are together and unexpectedly. For instance, when someone is in the kitchen in their pajamas, their hair messed up and the morning breath, and your partner comes behind you and hugs you and just tells you, I just want you to know how much you mean to me. I love you, and you mean so much in my life, and something specific. I'm being general, but usually people, what I mean. You say things, that specific things about how they supported you, how they help you being a better person, how they change your life for the better. I'm sure you can come up with something that applies to you, but it is very important. Don't forget, sometimes, I understand that we get busy. These days, life is busy. And you're concerned, oftentimes you think, well, but I am working for my family or for my partner, I'm making this money, I'm out there for their better life. And it's important, it really is. But don't lose the sight of what's really, truly important. They want you to be there with them. Sometimes, yes, money is an important part of our life. We have to pay for things. But at the end of the day, if you're never there, it's not gonna be a good thing. It's gonna destroy whatever foundation you build. And if, God forbid, something happens to you while you're out there making all that money, do you think your loved one would care about how much money you were trying to make to buy this, diamond ring, or to pay for this holiday? They'd rather you be there with them. Having said that, the other side of that coin is the fact that we have to keep sight of what's important to us, what's important for our well-being, overall well-being, for our core, really. Meaning, don't stay in places, situations, or with people that are not good for you. And you know when place, person, or the situation is not good for you. You do. Oftentimes people stick with relationship, especially relationships, but it's not limited to that. Sometimes it's the job you absolutely loathe, you hate that job, but you're sticking with it because you're thinking, oh, I don't know if I can make this much money doing something else, or can I find anything else? And so you make yourself inherently, fundamentally unhappy, which affects your inner core. And like I said, you're not living your life. Same with relationships. And this one is a bit tricky, but you really need, which is why you need to assess situation honestly. I've talked about it in the previous video. Dark room, no one there. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to be, because people say, oh, but I want to be responsible, that's why I'm staying with us. Well, you can be responsible in many different ways. You do not have to stay in a physical proximity in this relationship with someone to be responsible. You can, if you feel responsible because you had children with this person, or you bought the property together or whatnot, figure out the way how to deal with this financially. Because quite frankly, if you are genuinely unhappy, and when you're genuinely unhappy, even if you don't say it out loud, there is absolutely no question about it, then the chances are that person senses it, and it does make them unhappy. Even if they really want you to stick around and they want you to be there, the mere fact that they sense that you don't want to be there, that you're not happy, it caused them to be insecure, it caused all kinds of negative emotions that overall affect their well-being as well, so they're not happy. And the same thing, I'm not a believer in when people say, well, we're staying together for the children. I promise you, children can sense it, they can, and you're not making them any happier. They much rather, and it may not look like that straight away, but eventually it will be better if you honestly split up on a good terms. That's what I mean. Being responsible means talking about things honestly, working things out, figuring out a good plan, and then you'll be okay. And then your children will still have both parents, not under the same roof, but they're gonna still have both parents. They're gonna see that parents communicating freely, that parents are happy, both of them, quite perhaps with other people, but it doesn't matter. The parents are happy, they're talking to each other, they're communicating, there is no tension when they're back together, because everything was already said, done, and worked through, and it will be better for everyone involved. I promise you, I guarantee you that. I've seen so many unhappy people who keep saying, well, we need to stay together for various reasons. Sometimes it's religious beliefs, sometimes it's they feel they need to do it for the children, sometimes their families put a lot of pressure, and it's not doing anyone any good. No one is growing from this, no one is happy. It just creates this cloud of unhappiness that you literally wrapped into it, your entire household, your entire being. And that in return, because that's a very negative energy, there is nothing positive in there, and it draws in more negativity, and nothing good will come out of it, not for you, not for your partner, not for your children. Same thing with your job. If you're very unhappy, all relationship aside, if it's the job that you're so miserable and unhappy with, it is better. And nowadays it's so much easier. Back in the day when I was young, it was literally a choice. You had to find another job to support yourself, or you couldn't do anything else. Nowadays, in this gig economy, you can do all kinds of temporary gigs. Rideshare, back to the rideshare. You can do the rideshare, you can do food delivery, you can have an eBay store. There are a lot of different gigs. Whatever you have, if you have some skills, you can go and clean houses temporarily for people. And if you know how to repair cars, you can repair cars for people. You can go deliver packages for Amazon. In the meantime, while you're figuring out, but what I'm saying, you can have money coming in to pay your bills while you're figuring out how to get the job that does make you happy, or how to start your own business possibly. It makes it all possible. Sometimes people have hard time with changes, but I do believe the changes in many ways are good, because all these things were not available even 20 years ago. And look, they are. And that's another thing. Around the holidays, in these unhappy situations, a lot of people, especially relationships, they feel, well, I can't do it just before the holidays. I need to get through the holidays and then we'll see how it all works out. Honestly, it's a bit cowardly, and it's not a good way, and to me it's a dishonest way of doing things, because you still give the other person that idea that everything is hunky-dory. So you go, you spend all this money on presents, you sit at the family table, you smile, you post all these videos on the social media and photos, and everybody goes, oh, look at them, they're so happy. And then boom, come January or whatever, the ball drops, and the person, quite frankly, the other person would, and rightfully so, say, hey, you know what, that didn't just happen 3 days ago. So you knew, so why did you go through that whole holiday? They're not gonna feel like, oh, but he gave me one last happy holiday. Trust me, they're not gonna feel that way. And in fact, I know a specific story that's from someone who came and talked to me. That was a couple of years back. That it was a woman, her boyfriend, they were married, it was a boyfriend, but they were dating for a while. So he went all out for Valentine's. I mean, he did. He bought her a number of presents. He took her out, and she posted it all over her Facebook. He broke up with her the next day. And it was very clear when they talked. Obviously, she was very upset, but when they talked, it was very clear he felt that way for a while. So it's still, sometimes people's motivation just really blow me away. I have no idea, but I'm guessing he wanted to give her, in his mind, he thought, well, I'll give her this one last Valentine. Well, no, God, that was such a bad idea. That was such a genuinely bad idea. Anyhow, so what do we take away from all this? And like I said, do things you feel like doing, say things you feel like saying today. Don't wait. Don't even wait till tonight. If you're with the person you care about, tell them now. Do it now. Don't wait, because like I said, you never know. Look at what happened yesterday. That motorcyclist on I-15 North by Sahara, I think. It apparently was his fault, but that's beside the point. He was going his way on I-15. I guess maybe he was speeding, maybe the road was slick, but he rear-ended that car, got thrown off. He's dead. He's gone. So wherever he was going, whoever he was with, they will never get to hear him say, I love you for the last time. They never get to tell him, I love you for the last time. So don't wait. Time may run out on you really, really quick. Well, apart from that, I hope everybody's having good holiday season, and enjoy and stay with the spirit. Have a nice holidays, everybody.